According to Kobe, experiential learning theory describes learning as the process by which knowledge is created through the transformation of an experience. The process of learning values is fluid, highly differentiated, and the locus of evaluation is within the person. The learning cycle is represented by a four-phase continuum that includes concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. The variables that keep the cycle moving are the student's ability to grasp and transform the information. Bearing this in mind, we can examine the concept of student-centered learning, examining its purpose, elements, and benefits to understand the overlay between this framework and the experiential learning theory it is based on. Specifically, we can begin to unpack why student-centered learning is considered to be a transformational mode of instruction meant to adapt and change with the learner to maximize skill development. As you watch the following video, consider the elements of the experiential learning cycle in context of student-centered learning, and consider the fluid nature of student-centered learning's ability to adapt to the 9 learning styles presented by Kobe: experiencing, reflecting, thinking, acting, diverging, assimilating, converging, accommodating, and balancing. Each of these styles represents a different way of processing, transforming, and grasping information. The very elements that allow student-centered learning to be the personalized, competency-based, accessible anytime, anywhere model, where the process of learning is owned by the student.
A chalkboard, a desk, the homework, the books. The day begins and ends when the bells ring. For centuries now, this has defined what all of us think about school. We have come to believe that this is the one way that students will learn. And with that belief, we have taught all of our students in pretty much the exact same way. But the world has changed, and what it means to be ready to succeed in the future has also changed. That means our model of learning must change. It's happening now, and it needs to happen even more. In more places, for all students, especially for those for whom the current system isn't working. There is strong data that shows we need to rethink learning. Like remodeling a house, we're not just adding a new coat of paint, we're updating the outdated parts and making it more modern and efficient, strengthening what works and fixing what doesn't. Gone are the days when some students can excel and others just get by. Our society needs all kids to excel at high levels. And to make this happen, we need to engage our students like never before. This is...
After watching this YouTube video created by the Nellie Mae Education Foundation on transformation, it's clear that many of their ideas are rooted in what Kolb says about experiential learning, specifically in the fact that student-centered learning truly turns away from what we believe as traditional education, which was really what Kolb calls on page 305 a banking concept, where the teacher has all the knowledge, the teacher knows everything, and is just depositing this information into students. What student-centered learning focuses on is this transformation of what education is, and it asks that students actually become in charge of their education and they guide themselves. So it's a turn away from having a fixed identity or fixed idea of what it means to be intelligent, and it's actually asking learners to look at questions and to look at obstacles and to look at issues and to reflect on them and think about them and then decide the best path and method to find their own solutions.
Student-centered learning. It incorporates a student's skills and interests into the learning process, making the experience more personalized and involving the student in his or her own future. What makes this work? There are 4 key principles of student-centered learning. Number 1, learning is personalized. Personalized learning happens when teachers know students, have strong relationships with them, and can meet students where they are in their development. Number 2, learning is competency-based. Learning is about the information and skills a student has mastered, not just moving through a curriculum. In a competency-based system, students can proceed at their own pace in every subject, enabling teachers to respond to individual needs, interests, and challenges. Number 3, learning happens anytime, anywhere. Students will often make important discoveries about themselves and the world around them when they learn beyond the traditional school day and outside the traditional school walls. Learning doesn't start and stop when the bells ring. And number 4, the last key to student-centered learning is students take ownership. Don't make a decision about students without students. They play a direct role in their own success, actively engaging with the process to ensure the impact is lasting and meaningful. For student-centered learning to work, all 4 of these principles must work together. This is not an a la carte approach. It's reimagining education so it works for all students. The fact is, our world is changing. And with the latest in child development research, we know better than ever before how children and young adults learn. The facts are there, and they point to the need for a new system of learning designed around each student. And when this student becomes stronger and more focused, all of us will benefit from a new generation that is contributing to our communities and our world in so many ways. This is student-centered learning.
So up until this point in the transformation video by the Nellie Mae Education Foundation, it's describing what education was and the turn away from the traditional model of education. And it specifically gives the justification for that. So like in the Kolb article on page 305, with the quote from Paulo Freire, it talks about how the oppressed or the student feels good for nothing, they know nothing, and they're incapable of learning anything. Well, student-centered learning totally changes that. And it changes it because students now monitor their own progress, and education becomes something where students need to have experiences to learn, and then they reflect on these experiences and they think about those experiences, and then they create new actions. So this turn to student-centered learning actually requires students to be more involved in the educational process, which was not true in the past.